Hello, welcome back to another reading of Hot Flash Divas. Today we're reading chapter 40, Kent. Once I began to have fun, my life shifted into overdrive while I attempted to outrun my injured ego. My red married light turned green, and to my delight, eligible men wanted to feed me, take me sailing, dance with me, and hold hands during movies. They also wanted to saucer their way into my undies, but I wasn't ready for that yet. Gina's near-rape experience spooked me. I ventured out every night to dance, go to a movie, or even to sit in a coffee shop. Anything to outrun loneliness. I've had many patients over the years complain of loneliness. I assumed they were just bored. I have a much deeper understanding of their plight now. Once home, I crawled tired into a bed, hoping for 6 hours of sleep. In truth, I exhausted myself every night to remove the sting of an empty bed. A king-size bed stood ready for me to claim, yet I still slept on one side while the ghost of my marriage claimed the other. My current interest was Huntsville's free concerts in the park on Monday evenings. One of my clients mentioned them, so I researched them online. Determined to go, I contacted the divas. Dante has ball practice. I would love to go, but ball season will go for a while, said Letitia. Kat was out of town for training, according to her mom. She mentioned the training last week, but it slid out of my memory bank. Menopause fog was creeping around my neurons and synapses. That left Gina. Come on, Gina. You know you want to go. There are 2 good bands. I wedged my phone between my shoulder and ear while I glanced in my purse to make sure I had my sunglasses. You can work later. I packed my lawn chair in the trunk and scooted back into the house to grab a bottle of water from the fridge. Gina grumbled to herself in Italian. Okay, but you better bring me a bottle of water. I'm not going to wilt in this humidity without some cold water. Deal. Don't forget to bring a chair. Gina disconnected the call, so I retraced my steps to the fridge and grabbed several more bottles of water and shoved them into the ice of a small cooler. Once in the downtown park, I was stupefied by the diversity and sheer size of the gathering. Holding my chair in one hand and the small cooler in the other, I scanned the multitudes, wondering how I would locate Gina when she tapped me on the shoulder. Glad I found you before you ventured into that swarm of people. Can you believe this crowd? A lady walked past me with a black and white Great Dane. Whoa! I stepped to the side. She could saddle and ride him, said Gina, fanning her face with a hand fan that advertised a local mayoral candidate. We both watched the dog walk away. His large, dangling testicles swayed with each step. Wow, that dog could be a porn star, Gina fanned harder. Gina! I looked at her with my mouth agape. What would your mother say? Don't tell me you didn't think that dog had the biggest setup. Shh! I felt my internal heater kick into overdrive. Give me that fan. You shocked me into a hot flash. Gina laughed while I waved the fan like my life depended on it. We found a spot under the shade of a tree in front of a sidewalk. The stage was at the rear of the Museum of Art, which backed up to the park. I wasn't clear if the bands or the parade of people with dogs was more entertaining. There were big dogs, tiny dogs, fat dogs, and just as much variety in their owners. The highlight occurred when a white foo-foo standard poodle came snout to snout with the Great Dane. Tails wagged. They circled, entangling their masters with the leashes. Booting sniffing occurred, and the brute mounted the poodle. The owners yelled and yanked on the leashes. A titter spread from the group to group like a virus. The Great Dane continued the thrust long after he was pulled off his uptown girl. The size of his equipment put Todd to shame. I told you he could be a porn star, whispered Gina. I jabbed Gina with my elbow and we both giggled. I was thinking about bringing Buffy, but I'm not sure now. Some giant dog might assault her. Gina became quiet. A pensive look settled on her face. I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking. You all right? Yeah, you just never know with people, Fee. 5 minutes later, a guy walked up, pointed at the space next to me and asked, Is this spot taken? No, it's available. I looked up and smiled. My eyes went straight to his thick, sandy blonde hair while he set up his chair and settled in. I wonder how it would feel to run my hands through it. I'm Kent Lands. He held out his hand. Phoenix. I shook it. He held it a little longer than necessary. I fought the urge to squirm in my chair. I'm Gina. She leaned over and offered a smile. Did I miss much? He opened a cooler and extracted a Red Bull. Gina and I looked at each other and burst out laughing. A grungy guy seated to Kent's right looked over. Yeah, man, you missed a Great Dane with balls the size of Texas that mounted a poodle. It was a sight. I wish I had a dick that long. My hand flew to cover my face. I covered my eyes and looked down, shaking my head. My cheeks felt like they were on slow roast. I meant the band. Did I miss much of the music? Gina leaned past me and yanked down my hand. You missed the first band. The second one is due to start in 5 minutes. Thanks. He looked at me and appeared amused by my embarrassment. Warn me if you see that dog coming this way. I don't need the competition. That brought laughs from everyone around us. The band was good, and I boogied in my seat. Several couples danced on the sidewalk, but Kent seemed content to sit and listen. After the second band had finished, we packed our chairs to leave. Kent asked, Would you ladies like to go to a nearby restaurant and join me for a bite to eat? His gaze focused on me. Swarms of people were leaving, toting chairs, coolers on wheels, and pulling little red wagons. Geese and ducks waddled toward the safety of the lake. Not me, I have work to do. I've played hooky long enough, said Gina, giving me a slight push toward Kent. He named a restaurant that was a few miles away. That sounds good to me. I'll meet you there after I walk Gina to her car. We have a few things to discuss. I grabbed my chair and cooler and walked beside Gina. The exiting mass of humanity soon swallowed us. Gina's red Miata was a few spaces away from my blue Prius. Be safe. Park near the door of the restaurant. Don't go anywhere else with him. You don't know this guy. Oh, and call me when you get home, said Gina, as she piled her chair into the trunk and slammed it shut. Yes, Mom. I grinned, but I saw the worry on her face. We hugged goodbye. Scene break. Kent leaned near the door of Walton's, waiting for my arrival. When he spotted me weaving between the parked cars, he stood straight and smiled. You came. I thought your friend would talk you out of coming. No, she wanted to remind me of all the precautions I should take, just in case you're a serial killer. I winked and pulled open the door. Kent scrambled to hold it open for me. Do I look like a serial killer? His azure eyes widened. What does a serial killer look like? I flashed him a grin before I turned and held up 2 fingers to the hostess. She gathered menus in her arms and motioned for us to follow her. I guess that's a good point, said Kent as he trailed behind me. We settled in a booth. Kent steepled his fingers and looked at me in a way that made me feel X-rayed. I was probably examining him in a similar manner. What would you like to drink? The waiter startled us. He had a familiar lilt to his voice. Jamaican? I asked. Y'all mind? That's my home. He grinned, exposing bright white teeth. Sweet tea for me, I said. Me too, echoed Ken. My name is Antoine. If you need anything, just yell. He disappeared like smoke. Have you been to Jamaica? Ken unrolled the napkin, swallowing his eating utensils, and placed it in his lap. Went there on my honeymoon. I glanced around the inside of Walton's. The building was formerly occupied by Ruby Tuesdays. He cocked a brow. Divorced? Yep. You? Married once, one kid, a son, no baggage, end of story. The look on his face and clamped lips would serve to convince many that this was all he intended to say on the subject. I was curious and a miner of the deepest and the darkest of secrets. I tilted my head. How long were you married? 10 years. You? 20. How long have you been divorced? I clasped my hands in my lap to control my nervous tremble. He placed his forearms on the table and leaned forward. 4 years. What about you? Only 6 months. You'll get used to it. It takes time to adjust. That's what I tell my patients. I touched my hair behind my ear and glanced around the place. The booths and the tables and chairs were the same, but everything else had changed, including the paint color. Are you a shrink? He leaned back and hid his hands in his lap. I tilted my head, aware of his retreat. Psychologist. How do you earn a living? Computer programmer. I'm a private consultant. He listed the programs on his fingers. I write in C#, C++, Java, and a few other programming languages. As a total computer spaz, I had no idea what any of that meant. I settled and smiled and nodded. We settled down to peruse the menu. Antoine appeared like magic and placed our tea in front of us. He took our orders and seemed to evaporate on the spot. I blinked and wondered if this guy was a supernatural. Shaking my head, I chided myself for my choice of reading material. I'm curious, what happened to your marriage? I keep forgetting I don't have a right to ask people personal questions outside of therapy sessions. For some inexplicable reason, people give me answers. He fingered his fork. We just grew apart and decided to call it quits. I wondered if that was the truth, since that it was what Todd told Brandy. I noticed that his eyes remained glued to the fork. He stroked. Not a surefire sign that he lied, but my gut told me his ex might be able to supplement the fats of his tale. I decided to push things a bit. My ex-husband turned 40, had a midlife crisis, and while I was dealing with my dying father, had an affair with 3 women, one young enough to be his daughter. After my dad's death, he announced on Christmas Day that he wanted a divorce. I admit I spilled the information like battery acid. Kent looked up as he shifted back in his seat. That was harsh. What I said or what he did? Asking for a divorce on Christmas. What kind of asshole does something like that to another person? What kind of asshole indeed? Kent was beginning to grow on me. Antoine continued his eerie act. He served our meals. Mine was trout. Kent's was fried chicken. Safe topics of conversation made sneak appearances between bites of dinner. After our meal was completed and the dessert devoured, Kent asked me to a movie on Friday night. I accepted. Here's my card. Let's both check to see what's listed. Call me and we can discuss our 3 top choices. Kent took the card and nodded. Antoine placed the bill on the table in a black leather folder. I held my breath, remembering Frugal John. This bill-paying ceremony was turning into one of my dating tests. Without hesitation, Kent grabbed a bill, frowned at it, pulled some bills from his wallet, and placed them in the folder. Handing it to Antoine, he said, "Keep the change." "Thanks, Mom." I blinked, and Antoine seemed to vaporize from sight. "Is it me, or is that guy a little spooky?" asked Kent, his gaze focused on the empty spot where a waiter once stood. He's certainly a mystery. Every time I blink, he disappears. I flung my hands in the air. Poof! I tapped movie with Kent Lands onto my calendar for Friday night and saved it. Saturday night, I had a date with Nathan. We planned to attend a local dance. This reminded me to declare my commitment-phobic status. Before we progress, you need to understand I'm not interested in a relationship and have no plans to date anyone exclusively at this time. If you have a problem with that, we'll cancel Friday night. His smile fell open, but he closed it promptly. That's fine. You're newly divorced and a little gun-shy. I understand. I'll walk you to your car. Kent leaned on my car, his hand planted on the roof. The look in his eyes and the tilt of his lips alerted me that he planned to kiss me. I don't know what came over me. I reached over and gave him a butt-out, minimal body contact hug around the neck and opened my door. See you Friday. I slid inside, locked the door, and drove off. I felt high on the pheromones when I eased to a stop at a red light. Fidgeting with impatience, I glanced to the right. There was the local steakhouse where my father dined every Friday evening. I ate there with him so many times. I want that steak well done. Now you tell the cook when he smells it's cooking, when it's burnt, it's done. He ordered the same thing, the same way, every time. Tears dripped down my cheeks. A beep behind me shifted me to the moment. I glanced at the rearview mirror that framed a red VW Bug with the squeaky horn. I pressed the gas, determined to move forward. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy this. And like, subscribe, leave comments, whatever you would like. Have a great day. Be safe and be well.